Welcome to Healthcare Logic for Growth, the weekly show where we talk life sciences and healthcare in general, things like clinical operations, research, commercial strategy, market analytics, and what it takes for anyone in healthcare to grow in a sustainable way. I'm Eric Marr, your host, the founder of Life Science Logic and a current Life Science Association board member. So whether you're building a biotech, running a rural hospital, leading a home health agency, or shaping healthcare policy, this show is for you. Welcome back to Healthcare Logic for Growth. Today's episode is titled, What We've Learned in the First 6 Months of 2026. It's our 10th episode of a 10-part series, which was aimed at taking a snapshot of life sciences and anybody that is an advocate of patient wellness and contributes to that end. And seems like a perfect place to end the series and begin another series starting next week. But this one's very important because we want to share what we've learned. And there's so many moving pieces. We want to give as much to you as possible so that you can begin to plan what 2026 from June 30th, actually July 1st going forward, is going to look like for you. What's the second half of the year going to look like? And we want it to be a good second half of the year for you. And hopefully what we share today will help that. So if you run a small biotech, a med tech startup, a digital health company, pharmaceutical, medical device, home health agency, rural health association, anybody that's an advocate of patient well-being and how to get there, then you know that it's been a year of incredible opportunity. And it's also been a year of serious challenges. And we still have another 6 months to go. So in this episode, we're going to briefly break down the good, the bad, some general considerations, right, from the first half of the year that might help you for the rest of the year. Then after that, we'll cut through a lot of the noise and give you a practical, actionable list of things you might want to try to prepare for the next 6 months. I mean, it's up to you, but it's certainly a place to start. And it's always easier to edit than author. So hopefully that can contribute to whatever it is you want to accomplish in 2026. Again, we've outlined several other active policies, product innovations, and market dynamics in our last 9 episodes. But today's and this episode is really top of mind going into, like I said, July and what we might want to consider and what we might want to do going forward. So let's start with the positive side of the ledger, right? Because believe it or not, there's been a lot of good news for innovative companies. These are just some of the reasons for opportunities that seem, again, particularly important at this stage. First, the funding environment is showing a lot of real signs of life, right? We've been up and down the last few years. Actually, the last couple of years have been tough, but the venture markets are rebounding. We can see it. And according to HSBC Innovation Banking, at the end of 2025, we saw a significant recovery with the total healthcare venture investment reaching, I think it was $60 billion. That momentum is carried into this year. And while it's still a more selective environment than the boom years, and when I say that, I mean selective in how that money is distributed, to whom, and what the criteria is to get that money, the thing to remember here is the capital is flowing again. But if you have strong data, and we're going to talk about that as well, that's going to help your case significantly. All right. Secondly, regulators are pushing hard to get innovative products to patients quicker, right? They want to get it to market fast. The FDA is on a mission. We feel the need for speed, and so does the FDA. A major initiative is the Commissioner's National Priority Voucher Program. It can get certain drugs reviewed in as little as 2 months. There's also talk of integrating these fast-track ideas into the next PDUFA agreement. And for a small company, that kind of speed could be a game changer. It could be the difference between existence and no longer being an option. We also see innovation in the regulatory pathways themselves. A few weeks ago, we put out an entire podcast episode about the relationship between the FDA and Medicare, and it's kind of related to this. And that's one of our best episodes to date. So if that's important to you, which it should be, then please go back and check it out, because I think you'll be surprised if you haven't already looked at it. But specifically for today, the FDA has revised guidance on low-risk wellness products and clinical decision support software. And that provides a very much needed sense of clarity, right, for digital health developers. Because with all the moving pieces, clarity is extremely valuable right now. Then there's Tempo, the new FDA pilot program that offers enforcement discretion for certain digital health technologies in exchange for collecting real-world data. There's that word again, data. But this could allow some companies to get to market without the full weight of a pre-market review. And obviously that's massive for cash-strapped startups. And then for the sake of today's episode, there's finally a significant push to build the future workforce. Congress is actively prioritizing biotech talent development with bills aimed at assessing workforce, well, actually it's federal workforce needs and aligning education and industry demands. So again, talking about those moving pieces, making sure they're aligned, this would mean that the talent pool for your future hires is a priority on a national level. But of course, it's not all smooth sailing. The bad news is just as significant, and for small companies, it can feel, overwhelming, daunting. The number one issue, or at least close to it, is navigating a profoundly uncertain political and regulatory environment. We all see it. It's in the news. We speak about it at different times. But with the current administration's policies in full swing, life science leaders are divided on the impact of where they stand. How does that impact their business? How does it impact their partners? Because the regulatory landscape is shifting constantly. One major area of pressure is on drug pricing. Speaking of last week, a couple of weeks ago, last week, we actually put together an entire podcast of MFN, which is Most Favored Nation, the order, and how that impacts life sciences. So check that out as well, because it's topical right now. But the continued implementation of the Inflation Reduction Act, the Most Favored Nation executive order, and the new direct-to-consumer options, all those things together are obviously reshaping pricing and market access. I mean, everything in healthcare is tied to reimbursement, right? So here's one thing you need to become comfortable with. For a small company launching a new therapy, these policies create a huge cloud of uncertainty. You can't set a price without wondering how the government will react. On top of that, FDA staffing and leadership are in flux. That's just the truth. While the agency wants to speed things up, they're also operating with significant workforce cuts and appointees at the helm who may not have the healthcare experience of leadership in the past. This can create a dangerous situation for small companies. You're under stress to move faster, but the agency you need to work with is stretched thin, and the leadership might not change its mind on key issues, or maybe need more experience to understand those issues and make decisions related to it. Also, proposed changes to federal grant making are raising alarms. In late May of this year, the OMB proposed a rule that would allow appointed officials to cancel grants based on non-scientific criteria. For an early-stage life science company relying on SBIR or NIH grants, this poses an existential threat to your I&D pipeline. Don't forget the inflation and supply chain pressures either. Tariffs and trade tensions are squeezing manufacturers, and the traditional 340B drug discount model is shifting, which could upend pricing and contracting strategies for many. Those are a lot of moving pieces, like we said earlier. So understanding them is important, and knowing that they exist and that it's probably going to impact your decision-making for the rest of the year, get up to speed on these if you can. Another part we added was just general considerations to consider right now, right? You've got the good, the bad, and these are some areas that it just depends on where you are in your company. But one of them is data fragmentation wastes time and money in the mind of many. Even if you secure funding, the process is typically inefficient, or at least that's been the case in the past. Nearly 60% of biopharma companies admit that their data is fragmented and inactionable because there's so much of it. Researchers waste precious hours manually migrating data between disconnected systems instead of generating insights. That's the runway burning right in front of you. Number 2, investors are seeing a pattern where deep tech founders spend 4 or 5 years perfecting every detail while their runway burns again. The mantra for 2026 needs to be speed. Balance scientific rigor with market windows. You can't afford to spend 3 more years perfecting something to 99% of what you want it to be while investors move on to faster competitors. Number 3, commercial leadership can't wait. Many technical founders underestimate the importance of commercial expertise early on. That's the key. One executive I know shared a cautionary tale of a company where the CEO was a CFO. They simply couldn't find the right commercial leader in time, and they couldn't show the impact investors needed within 6 months. This is a failure you can't afford. Get the right people in there. Keep in mind you're going to need to face your customer, whoever it is, and putting commercial leadership in the decision-making process is critical. Number 4, customer selection is life or death. Long sales cycles are the enemy of a startup. A simple but brutal rule from the experienced investor: if you sell to the NHS, you die. Selling to a massive, slow-moving system with a 24-month sales cycle can be the death of a startup. You need to be ruthless about identifying beachhead customers who you can, work with, that will give you validation, that will provide cash flow quickly. You need to find them before you worry about the whale that you're going after. So with all these things, what's a life science leader to do? Now, these are impressions, these are opinions, but they're worth at least considering. You can't wait until you need a partnership to start networking. You need to be building bridges now and cultivating relationships with strategic partners long before you need a pipeline. That proactive relationship building skill is now more important than a perfect technical background. You gotta have people that you trust and that trust you. You have to have people that understand your business and you understand theirs. You have to have people that you see the value in engaging with and they see the value in engaging with you. Because after that, after you cultivate relationships, it's going to make your go forward so much easier. And it just makes sense. Also, be smart about your capital strategy. Venture capital alone isn't the answer. 2026 U.S. budget includes substantial increases for NIH and SBIR, as we were saying earlier. Roughly, $1.3 billion is allocated for SBIR alone. That's non-dilutive funding that doesn't require giving up equity. And it's a huge untapped market for early stage companies. You just have to know what you're doing, right? We talked about it earlier in the podcast. The environment is tough. I agree, but it's not impossible. It rewards companies that are smart, fast, and commercially pragmatic from day one. The companies that survive the next 6 months won't just be the ones with the best science. They'll be the ones with the best strategy. So here's a potential go-forward strategy starting this week, right? 10 actionable steps that, if it makes sense to you, will prepare you for the next 6 months. So we've talked about a snapshot, right, of the landscape. And you need to know what to do about it. You need to be smarter, faster, more resilient. Preparation is key. So here's the top 10 action items that'll get you there. Number 1, document everything with the FDA. In this environment of staff churn and shifting policies, your word is only as good as your documentation. Confirm everything. Make sure everything is still relevant. Make sure no one's changed their mind on critical elements of your development program. keep meticulous records of every meeting and every piece of guidance you received. We spoke about this just a few minutes ago. Build bridges, not just products. You can't afford to wait until you need a partnership to start networking. The key skill in this market is finding leaders who are focused on building bridges and cultivating relationships and being open to strategic partners. Start building those relationships now before you need a lifeline. Number 3, prioritize speed of execution. This is particularly important for tech founders. Investors are starting to see perfectionism as a liability. Some investors may think companies spend too much time perfecting every detail when they need more urgency. Balance is key. Balance scientific rigor with market dynamics. Number 4, be ruthless about your first customer. Avoid the death by sales cycle trap. Selling to a massive public health system with a 24-hour health cycle can be the death of a startup. Ideally, find beachhead customers who can give you validation and cash flow right now while you need it. Number 5, install commercial expertise early. Don't treat commercial leadership as a post-funding concern. A lack of commercial pragmatism is a huge red flag for investors. One executive of mine, it's the same one that talked with me earlier, shared a cautionary tale about the CEO and the CFO. Remember that? They couldn't find the right commercial leader in time, and this really, really hurt them. So make sure and do that. Get the right person in position as quickly as possible. Number 6, review your pricing strategy against the MFP threat. We talked about this during last week's episode. The most favored nation program and IRA policies, they're not going away. Model how your pricing would be impacted if you were forced to come down to a reference price. That's a good tactic. I couldn't remember that. A proactive pricing and patient access strategy will be a competitive advantage, but you have to have that in place, right? Number 7, explore the new pathways, tempo, and access. If you're a digital health or medtech company, you should probably look at these pilot programs. The access model from CMS, the access model will reimburse based on patient outcomes, not services. And Tempo offers enforcement discretion for participating companies. These could provide a powerful shortcut to market and payment. Number 8, prepare for tariffs and supply chain shakeups. We can't get around it. That's a reality of this year. Investigate your supply chain for vulnerabilities. The Biosecure Act is tightening the screws on foreign manufacturing. Now is time to assess your exposure and start looking for alternative suppliers. Number 9, build a war room for regulatory monitoring. You can't read every guidance document and bill, but you need a system, even a simple one like Google Alerts or a weekly team huddle to monitor the FDA, CMS, OMB for changes that specifically impact your category or niche. Number 10, over-communicate your value prop or UCB to investors. Don't assume investors understand the nuance of your technology. You're the one that has to connect the dots between your science and their need for a return. The bar is higher than ever, so your messaging needs to be crystal clear and defensible. In closing, you see that I reference some of the principles and go-to-market or go-forward strategies, go-to-market strategies as well, multiple times. That's because I want you to remember them and not forget them, because all of them can be incremental that has very large positive impact on your business. Because the next 6 months are going to separate the companies that survive from the ones that thrive. By focusing on these action items, building relationships, documenting everything, prioritizing commercial execution, you can turn these challenges into your competitive advantage, because everybody's going to be faced with the same thing, but not everybody's going to take it to heart and act on the things that we've discussed today. If you need help talking through some of these things, when you go to see, the show notes, there's contact information. You can get a hold of me, Eric, at lifesciencelogic.com, and we can spend a couple minutes talking about some of these things. But just a heads up, it's a big thing. Starting next week, we're going to be rolling out deep dive content across a range of life science and healthcare sectors, including pharma, med dev, biotech, digital health, rural health, home health associations, and more. And when I say deep dive, that means we're going to actually draw on insights from our own internal AI, which is an intelligence engine, and will likely span 3 to 5 episodes per category, so that if there's something that you're within one of these life science or healthcare sectors, we're going to be dealing with it 3 to 5 times, one after the other. And it's likely that'll probably impact you and your company. So we invite you to make sure to listen to that. We'll also be releasing an in-depth market news episode at least once a month to keep you up to speed on the latest healthcare policy developments and industry trends. Things like the favored nation pricing, FDA and Medicare alignment, and Medicaid, what's happening with Medicaid in Nebraska and other states to follow. You want to keep track of that because it's likely your state's going to be involved. And all of those represent opportunities for small healthcare companies and those in the other sectors. So anyway, that brings us to a close. Thanks for listening to us today here at Healthcare Logic for Growth. If you found this episode helpful, please follow us or subscribe and share it with somebody else who might need some help. Until our next episode, take care. Thanks for spending time with me today on Healthcare Logic for Growth. If this episode brought you value, share it with someone in your network who's navigating their own commercial journey. I think they'll appreciate it. And if you have a healthcare-related topic you want me to tackle, leave me a note at eric@lifesciencelogic.com. Thanks again. I hope you'll join me on the next episode.